Thank you everybody for being here, and thank you to Gunnison Country Times for hosting, and thanks to you all for using the library this way. Appreciate it. Great. Yeah, sure.
It's a music stand.
It is a music stand. It's my podium. It's my makeshift podium.
Expectation.
That's right. Hey everyone, I'm Will Shoemaker. For those who don't know me, from the Gunnison Country Times. I'll be moderating tonight's debate. It's been a long-standing tradition of ours to have these sort of events leading up to a local election. You know, as Drew pointed out, democracy in action. This is how we inform you about the folks that you're going to be voting on. So thanks for coming out. In order to keep on track tonight and make sure that we're not all here till midnight, candidates will be allotted a certain amount of time for your answers to the questions that I'm going to be asking. Times Office Manager Morgan Schaefer is going to keep us on track with time. She's got two different cards that she's going to show. One is when there's 30 seconds left. Can we see that one, Morgan?
Okay, she's right there.
And the other one, yeah. And the other one says time, meaning wrap up the sentence that you're in the middle of, and let's move on to the next question. So keep an eye on Morgan to kind of keep us on a tight schedule here. We're obviously not using a PA system this evening, so please speak loud enough that everyone here can be heard, can hear us. And members of the audience, if you're having trouble hearing, just put your hand to your ear to signal to whomever's speaking that they should talk a little bit louder. So without further ado, let's jump into the debate. The first section of tonight's debate is actually going to be opening remarks from the candidates. Unfortunately, Josh Lambert was unable to make it tonight. However, Tanner is going to speak on his behalf and give us an overview of who Josh is and what he stands for. So come on up. Everyone, well, thank you for allowing me to just briefly talk on Josh's behalf. It is unfortunate he wasn't here. He did have a family wedding in North Carolina that he had planned for several months. So I appreciate you guys just being here and allowing me to speak on his behalf. I'm going to just keep it short and briefly talk about Josh as a person. I'm not going to cover anything of his policies because I do not want to speak for him directly. Mainly I want to be here and just let you know Josh is still in the run. He's still trying for city council. And Josh is a person, he's a very active member of the Gunnison community as well as at Western. Throughout the community, I know many people know him, speak highly of him, and then of those at Western, he's highly involved with the students themselves and with the IT department at Western. The reasons Josh sees a need to run is Josh isn't a native to Gunnison City or Gunnison County. Like many of us, he has come here and found a home in this beautiful town of ours, and he sees a responsibility to give back to the community that's given him so much. He understands that in order to hope for a better tomorrow, he must first look to himself and ask, what can he do, or what can I do? His background is mainly in the IT industry, and he is now pursuing a degree at Western in film studies. And with that background in IT, he does see a strong suit of his, which is to problem solve and welcome on issues that are not easily solved. He himself is a man who just likes to kind of get into the nitty-gritty and figure things out. Even though it may be a struggle, he's there for the long haul and wants the best for our community. Excuse me, sorry. I guess that's actually really the majority of it. Like I said, I wanted to just keep it brief, let you guys all know that Josh still is in the run. If you get the chance to meet Josh, I highly recommend just shaking his hand, getting to know him, talking a little bit with him. He's a man that I respect as a great friend of mine. He's also my landlord, and I know he cares a lot about me. So without further ado, I want to pass it on to everyone else. Appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
try my best tonight to stay on track in giving you each a different turn to talk and changing the order so that we're not just going in the same order every time. I may need some help though, so I'll rely on you a little for that. Bo, you want to talk first?
You
Tell us a
bet.
little bit?
I'd love
How much
to.
time do we have?
You have 2 minutes for this
Oh,
section.
2 minutes.
Yep.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
okay.
No, 5
I thought it was 3. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah, better
It's
shorten
okay,
it.
right. Do you mind if I stand up?
Not at all.
Okay, good. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming tonight. Big game one. My name is Bo Freeburn. I'm a 1984 Western graduate. Got a degree in education. My wife is here. She is a retired CPA. Both my kids went to Western State. They both graduated, and they're out of here and in other places. I always, sorry about this. I always thought Gunnison was going to be a great place to retire, and you know I was right. This place is wonderful. The community is very welcoming and has a very bright future. We love it here, and small towns are in our blood. I went to high school in the Denver area, but I grew up in Alamosa, so I grew up in a small town and really liked that a lot. My wife is from a small town in northern Michigan. Now that we're retired, I have the desire and the opportunity to serve this community. My vision for Gunnison is to preserve Gunnison, is to preserve its history, its historic small town character, while responsibly and proactively addressing the challenges of its inevitable growth. The city is currently building a foundation for responsible growth with its 2030 comprehensive plan, the Downtown Vibrancy Initiative, multiple housing projects that are going on, the Gunnison Rising Project, proposed solar projects, and a very strong city staff in place. One of my philosophies in life has always been to leave things better than you found it. And that would be my driving force if I were to be on the city council, to do my best and try to serve and leave it in a better place. My priority issues include safe streets for all ages and various modes of transportation, quality housing, affordable and available housing, very important. I'm out of time already, that was quick. Sorry about it.
We'll dig into the details.
Okay,
Here
all right,
in a
good.
minute. Steve.
Yeah. Good evening. Thanks for coming. My name's Steve Schechter. My wife and I moved to this valley in 1977. She was the high school librarian for 38 years at Gunnison High. And most of the time I've been here, I've been a contractor building extremely energy efficient homes. I built the first straw bale house in the valley and then the first one in the city of Gunnison. And during my time in Gunnison, I've had a bunch of public service. I was on the board of High Country Conservation Advocates for probably 10 years, and then after working in water and trying to get water board elections at the Upper Gunnison, the judge appointed me to the Upper Gunnison. And at the Upper Gunnison, I was chairman of the Lake San Cristobal Water Activity Enterprise, and we built an outlet works to Lake San Cristobal, and we built it for $900,000 and got 900 acre feet of water out of it. So that was really inexpensive water, $1,000 an acre foot. And I also was elected to the Gunnison County Electric Association, and I was trained a lot when I was there. We had to attend 40 hours of classes in the first year, and during the 5 years I was there, I took many, many classes on the whole electric industry, from renewables to how we transmit our energy from one place to another. So I do know energy. Oh, geez. Well, my big thing is climate change. I think this city needs to get going on climate change. Our children are wanting it. We need to get going, because we have really not, we've only scratched the surface so far. So if I get elected, I will help the rest of the board try to work faster on dealing with our big carbon problems. Thank you.
Mallory.
Hello, I'm Mallory Logan. I'm grateful to see so many interested citizens here. I'm also grateful I remembered not to wear a wool sweater like I did at the debate in 2017. I moved to Gunnison in 2004 as a freshman at Western State College.
Yes.
What is it now? No. And I was in the Academic Leadership Program Scholarship with Gary Pearson, and through my work with him, I just really fell in love with the Gunnison Valley. I moved around a lot growing up, and it was the first place that I really felt home and rooted into a sense of community. And since my time at Western, I have begun a family. I have a son. He's in 6th grade now, causing all sorts of trouble. I own a business downtown Rochambeau, and I was also elected to Gunnison City Council in 2017. I would be grateful to be reelected. It's been just an absolute treat to learn everything about how the city works and to be downtown, listening to residents and seeing how I can vocalize their needs in the projects that we're working on. A few of the boards and committees that I've been involved in the last 2 years include the City Council Strategic Plan. I'm on the Gunnison 2030 Comprehensive Plan Committee. I served on the Lazy K Housing and Park Planning Committee. I'm on the Sustainable Tourism and Outdoor Recreation Committee. I'm on the Gunnison Vibrancy Downtown Leadership Committee. I'm on the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, and also the Gunnison Country Chamber of Commerce Board, and the Gunnison Valley Observatory Board, and that is time.
Diego?
Hello, everyone. My name is Diego Plata. I came to the United States in 1995, immigrating from Venezuela. I moved to the U.S. and first lived in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., one of the greatest melting pots, I believe, of cultures and diversity. From there, I moved up to Baltimore, where I attended college and finished a Bachelor's of Science in International Business. From there, I found myself in Denver, wanting to learn to ski, and not long thereafter, I moved to Gunnison to pursue a Master's of Environmental Management at Western. I was the first cohort through, and when I first got to Gunnison and had my first meeting with Dr. Hausdorfer, he asked me, "What are you going to do for Gunnison? Are you going to stay here or will you leave after?" My honest answer was, "I'm not really sure." Since graduating in 2016, I feel like I've accomplished a lot and found a real sense of place here. I've managed to get myself appointed to 2 terms on the Gunnison County Planning Commission. I'm now running for City Council. But to me, most importantly, I've very briefly started to raise a family. I've got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. I've had the joy of watching my wife, who's in the back here, grow her own business in the mental health profession. She's a behavioral therapist focused on early child development. If elected to City Council, I believe the future is important, and kids and childcare, infant through elementary would be very important to me, and looking to find feasible and effective ways to help working moms and dads like myself. That, of course, brings safe streets and complete streets so they can bike to work, because I don't want to drive them every day. It just causes more traffic and confusion. And continue to collaborate with Gunnison County and other entities in the valley so that we can move Gunnison ahead and all the different and diverse challenges that we as a city face. Thank you.
So for this next section of the debate, it's going to move a little bit quicker. You'll each only have 1 minute to answer the question that I'm going to pose. And I'm going to pose the same set of questions to every candidate, so you'll have an opportunity to answer. We'll start with Diego this time. And the first question I have is, the city's budget encompasses many things, as we all know, from refuse collection to parks and recreation. What would be your spending priorities if elected?
Thanks, Will. As I just said 2 seconds ago, safety would be one of the top priorities for me. In addition, continuing communications with the city, I believe, would be a priority. I think the staff has done a great job of moving that along. I think to get a more informed public will bring about a more participative democracy. And if we can focus on pushing those efforts to ensure everyone knows what is happening, why it is happening, how it affects them, and how we can, I'll say, boil down policy decisions to ensure our public is informed. I think that would be one of my key priorities. Of course, having gone through an environmental management program, there's also a lot of the energy work that needs to be done. I also feel like on the refuse end, there's room for growth there, and a key focus of mine would be working to implement a system or process through which we can tally what our waste looks like. Thanks.
Mallory?
Well, I said this yesterday at the senior lunch, but the thing that I was most excited about going in to my role on council was the 2017 strategic plan that our current council put together. And raise your hand if you've experienced any burnout on planning and how many plans you've been doing the last 2 years. Well, we're hoping they're going to be worth it. And what we've heard over and over from the residents, and something that I've really tried to prioritize and remember in my position, is that you are our boss and you funnel into us as council, and then the directive comes out from us to staff. And what we've heard again and again from residents is that we need to be maintaining and taking care of what we have before we build new things that will also need to be taken care of. So to me, our priority is still our capital maintenance and replacement plan, which, you know, goal 1, it's not exciting, but it's the wastewater treatment plant, and that's my time, but it's happening. That you can't see, so.
Steve?
Yeah, I showed up at the budget meeting the other day, and it was very informative, so. But we only have so much money to work with, so we've got to be very selective in what we spend it on, so. But as you will know, my big deal is climate change and how we use energy, and I think the city really needs to start spending a lot more attention on that and making that part of their budget. You know, let's start working towards electric transportation. That's where the state's going. We need to follow the state on that, because that's very important, because 70% of our carbon comes from our home and business heating and structures and our transportation. So that's where the big problem is with carbon. So we've got to start working on that. We've got to start working on helping people and rentals around town become more energy efficient, so we keep more of our money here. It's not very good for people's prosperity when they have to send all their money paying to heat their home every winter. We need to work on that, and let's find the budget money to do that.
And for me, I have to agree with Diego. I think safety is really important. Safe streets, I see as a big thing. I went to the meeting that Steve was talking about the other day too, the budget meeting at City Council chambers, and really surprised to see how much money is spent on maintenance. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised, because of the environment we live in and all the issues that surround that. The refuge is pretty incredible. There's a lot of issues going on with that I think need to be addressed. You know, I think somehow money needs to be spent on the housing problem that we have in the town. I hear all the time how difficult it is for college students to find places to live, but also people coming here to work at the university or at the hospital or things like that. There's a lot of issues on the table, I think, that need, if we could have more money somehow, that really need to have attention drawn to them. So that's what I say safety is a big issue.
Okay. We'll come back to safety later. For this next question, we're going to start with Steve, and we're going to go in that direction to try and give everybody an opportunity to answer a question first. What do you believe the city's proper role concerning affordable housing is?
Well, affordable housing is not just what it costs for rent or to buy that house. It's how much it costs then after that to heat that home, electrify that home, and power that home. And so it's really important that we start looking to raise our standards so that people that go into a rental or a home know how much it's going to cost them when they're in that home. And to get there, I think we really need to start, the planning office needs to start looking at having a mileage sticker for all homes and rentals in this valley. So when you go to buy a home, you know how much it's going to cost you to live in that home for energy. When you go to rent a home, it has a mileage sticker on it, so you know that after you've paid your rent, you're going to be able to pay your power bill. Because that's a real surprise for a lot of people. They get into a rental, and then they can't afford to live there because it costs too much to heat that place. So, and I think by having a mileage sticker on there, rental owners are going to have to learn that if they want to rent that house, they're going to have to improve it. Thank you. Sorry I ran over.
No, it's good. Valerie.
The city's role in affordable housing is really multifaceted and multi-layered. We can do many things. We've already just started working on quite a few. In the last 2+ years, we've been looking at our land development codes and also our building codes and seeing what we can do to break down the barriers to the costs of building housing. What can we do to break down the barriers to incentivize private builders to build new housing? So it's a public-private partnership of how can we help private builders, and then we've got the Lazy K property where we're kind of putting on the hat of developer for the first time. So we're looking at an MOU currently with a builder to get some units going. We're working with the county on road access issues for the Rock Creek project. And really a lot of what we've done is hoping to encourage about 170 new units.
Can I ask what an MOU is?
Oh, it's Memorandum of Understanding. It's like an agreement.
Diego?
I believe the city's role in housing really revolves around policy. I don't necessarily think the government needs to be in the business of owning real estate. Nonetheless, it is a participatory democracy, and so we should look for ways to guide policy that can be effective. On the Gunnison County Planning Commission, I too have been involved in helping pass policy that has really brought down some of the barriers that exist in specifically tiny homes. And looking to someone like Gunnison County, where we are, is helpful. Looking to other places that are facing similar challenges to ensure that we implement effective policy that can become sustainable in the very, very long run. While we are real estate gurus and owners right now, I think drafting the policy effectively to utilize those assets and then hand them off to the free market is where the city should be.
Great, Bo.
Very complex question. I think the city is doing some really good things right now with the 3 projects that are going on, the Lazy K and the Rock Creek and the Garden Walk projects. It makes a lot of sense to me. I think there needs to be more of that somehow developed, and not really sure, but I also believe there needs to be other options, not just affordable housing, but other housing options for folks that come here that can afford a nicer home. I know that I've heard that college professors coming to town or people at the hospital who can afford a nicer house can't find places to live, to buy. And I think that puts pressure on the whole system. I last year riding the RTA to the ski area, seeing all the working folks going up to the ski area that are staying, in the hotels in town here. I mean, that's kind of, it's a tough situation for everybody. That's a long commute for them, and they have a tough living situation possibly. I'm not sure, but I think it's a real complex question and one that I would like to know more about.
That's everyone, right? No question. We're going to start with Mallory this time and work our way toward me. we've talked about safety a little bit. It's been mentioned by a few candidates as it being a priority. That being safety of streets. Do you believe enough has been done in the way of safety surrounding streets? If not, what might you work toward if you were to be elected to another term?
Do I think enough has been done? That's a tricky question. I have learned so much about bureaucracy. I was very frustrated about everything that was going on at the intersection of Main and Tamichi, and like, why can't we just make something happen? And then you start to learn the pieces at play, that those are two intersecting state highways, and when you work with an entity like CDOT, who we've not previously had a relationship with, they're not eager to make a bunch of changes. Their goal has been to get traffic through town as quick as they can, and we've been working really hard. I have to credit Russ and city staff for really driving that relationship and building a relationship, and we've had them here many times, and they're very excited about the crossings we did at 11th and Legion Park, and so we're hoping to take that in. It's a slow moving process. Thanks, Morgan.
Steve?
Yeah, that intersection's gotten to be a horrible, unsafe, polluted, noisy, congested mess. This summer I was seeing people backed up for 3 blocks coming from the west trying to turn onto 135 to go north. I mean, the problem is we have just too many cars and too many trucks on that road to handle it. And I think at some point we're going to have to start looking at bypass routes for trucks at least, because it's and Vail Associates has promised us 6% increase in traffic every year after they bought that ski area up there. So it's only going to get worse. And so I think we really need to start looking at some long-range solutions that are to make it actually safe there. Because I don't think a senior could even cross during the summer at any of those intersections. It's just impossible. There's not enough time for a woman with a walker or a guy with a cane to get across there. So we really do need to come up with better solutions. Thank you.
Well, I think safe streets is probably the reason why I jumped in the race to begin with. We walk our dog every night and walk across Main Street, and I'm pretty able. I can get across pretty quickly, and I'm not happy with what I see and the threat that I feel from these gigantic, fast-moving cars down Main Street. And I don't even go around Tamichi that often, but when I saw the logging trucks this summer racing through town, I just thought, man, something's got to be done about that. No wonder Main Street and Tamichi are such a hazard. You know, there's other things though too. I think even in the core of the city, I think sidewalks need to be improved to get pedestrians off the streets. I see there's a I don't know who these people are, but they walk down our street every day. One woman is in a wheelchair and another man is pushing her, and they're walking in the street every single day. And I live on Wisconsin Street, and it's a pretty busy, fast-moving street. I'd love to see those folks have a safe place to walk off the street.
Diego.
I'll say ditto to everything that everyone has said as far as transportation goes. I had a really good meeting with the police chief last week where he explained to me that the budgetary constraints to his department are really based around his department needs on personnel. Well, we did a great job in passing the budget for an extra police officer within our department. Unfortunately, due to injuries, that department is still very, very limited in what they can and cannot enforce. So while certainly the new crosswalks are a really great approach of what a big problem we are facing and continue to nail, I believe there needs to be an education factor to make sure that people are using the button rather than just standing there. But more importantly, ensure that our dispatch and that our police force has the resources that they need to create that safety for our community.
I believe we're back to Bo here. It's your turn to go first on answering this question. A report earlier this year was critical of policies on the part of the city and its electric power provider for being inhibitive toward renewable energy. If elected, would you advocate for changes to the city's portfolio of energy sources? If so, what and how?
Well, I certainly would. I think it's a shame that we have to rely on fossil fuels to provide most of our energy when we live in a place that the La Vida Hotel used to advertise that if it wasn't a sunny day, they would get a free dinner or a free night stay. I would love to see much more. I'm just surprised that there's not more renewable energy sources going on here with our big reservoir we have down here. We don't get that energy with the wind that we have. I know it's not a real reliable wind around here, but we do have a lot of wind around here. And the solar, I think, is just, it needs to be, we need to have more options and more opportunity to take advantage of that energy source. Not only for the energy, but also just for the environment and the pollution that the fossil fuels produce. Even in Nebraska, it's still an issue. So, yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, our contract with Mean is really problematic. When I was at GCA, I was always critical of Tri-State only allowing us by contract only self-generate 5%, and then I found out the city it's only 2%, and which is really onerous. And I think if this valley really is going to prosper, we need to generate a lot more energy here than 2%, and I think it's critical that the council start looking at our contract and start really seriously thinking about what we're going to do so we can generate a lot more here and have more prosperity here. Because right now, I think this valley probably spends $20 to $30 million out of the valley to pay for imported energy, and that's all coming out of people's pockets. And there is no prosperity where that money's going away like that, year after year after year. We have to start making our own energy future and trying to keep more of our energy dollars in the valley. Thank you.
Mallory?
Something I pushed really hard for in our 2017 strategic plan was weaving sustainability into a lot of our goals, all of the strategic goals. Some exciting things we have coming down the pipe. I credit Will Dowis, our electric superintendent, who sits on the Mean board. We just reappointed him to that board at our last council meeting. He attends those meetings in person to speak on behalf of City of Gunnison, and David Gardner is all ears when it comes to how to work with Mean. We're at about 59% renewable in our portfolio right now. It's not all local, but we do have a pretty big WAPA allocation, which is power out of the Crystal Reservoir. So that's amazing, and that's why most of our power is we're so much cheaper than anywhere in the state. And we also have proposed in the 2020 budget to go net zero by purchasing wind power through Mean. And that's my time.
Diego?
Well, could I ask you to repeat the question?
Yes. A report earlier this year was critical of policies on the part of the city and its electric power provider for being inhibitive toward renewable energy. If elected, would you advocate for changes to those policies? If so, what?
Thank you. Yeah, I absolutely would advocate for changes. I do know that there is work already taking place. I don't necessarily know the answer to what specifics we could do immediately to move this thread forward. Nonetheless, from my professional background, I do have a really keen understanding of policy implementation in other countries and other cities around the world to work towards meeting the Paris Agreement Accord. That understanding and experience, I think, would be valuable for me to bring to City Council so that we can look to other places and weave some of the best practices from not just our valley and our state, but from around the world to help us move that needle forward. In short, yeah, I would absolutely advocate for more renewable energy in our power supply. I would do so in a stepwise manner that is not only feasible and visionary, but in large pragmatic to what we can do with the limited budgets that we have.
Great. You get to keep the floor here, Diego. Yes, come back this way. What role do you believe the city should play, if any, with respect to economic development?
I think the city needs to ensure that our economic engine continues to thrive. I believe that small businesses in this city are in large our economic engine. I believe that we need to, again, going back to policy, ensure that we give those small business owners we help those businesses to ensure that they can thrive in what they're already doing, using the assets that already exist. We have a wonderful program and entity in the ICE Lab to bring in some outside businesses, and I think that's important. But I do also believe that working with the businesses that are already here to ensure their vitality is feasible is also really important. And be it through policy or through infrastructure fixes to ensure that they have water, electric, high-speed internet, etc., would be a priority to me on City Council.
Mallory.
I have to agree with Diego. As a downtown small business owner, I see, every afternoon my internet slows down, and the brewery doesn't have a big enough water line to run their dishwasher and brew beer at the same time. And there's things like that are sort of, well, the internet is one issue that we're currently working on, redundant broadband, which is exciting. We're getting 2 lines in, one from Lake City and one over Cottonwood Pass, which will be very helpful. But I think, to go back to my first answer, pointing to infrastructure, as the city is making our infrastructure upgrades, we need to make sure that our downtown central business district is attracting growth downtown, and there's enough electric and parking and all of that. And our role, I think, can be through building codes, and that's my time. Why does my time feel so much shorter than yours?
You have so much
Time
more to
flies
say.
when you're having fun. Steve.
Well, I'm going to bring up again energy as far as it relates to economic development. Kit Carson Kit Carson Electric Cooperative down in northern New Mexico, they left the tri-state contract because it didn't allow them to self-generate hardly anything. And they got a partner, Guzman Energy, that paid for the buyout, a 6-year buyout, and at the end of the buyout, they're going to have electric rates that are 40% less than they were before. And the other thing is that Guzman's helping them build 40 megawatts of solar down there, which will provide jobs, well-paying jobs, maintenance jobs on that system. And I think that's the way we need to go. We need to make our own energy future so we keep more of our energy dollars here, because I live in a net zero energy home and drive an electric car, and I'll tell you, it saves you so much money you wouldn't believe. When you don't have an energy bill, it gives you a lot of freedom. So I think that's where the city could go.
I think we need to really support the current businesses we have downtown. I think there's some things we could do to help them. I went down and talked to all the businesses the other day and handed out my little flyer and talked to the owners, and it was really interesting to see. I mean, a lot of them are kind of struggling down there. I know it's not the season with the tourists that we usually have in the summertime or maybe in the wintertime. Somehow we need to improve that. And I think maybe one way is to improve the parking situation down there. I look around, I look for handicap parking accessibility, and I think those kind of things are a little bit of a problem for the business community. But man, when you're down there, a lot of things they talk about is the noise, and they have to always shut their doors, and just the speed of the traffic through downtown is a problem. But I also think we need to also support new businesses that may be coming in, and other areas that might, but just businesses in general to the area. I think that would be an important thing to do.
So we're going to move into the next portion of the debate now, in which I get to ask some specific questions to each of you candidates that I have for you. You have 2 minutes to answer questions in this portion. If you don't feel like certainly you need to use every second of it, if you feel like you've adequately answered the question, then let's move on to the next one and allow somebody else a chance to respond. We're going to start with Mallory this time and come toward me. Mallory, what are your proudest accomplishments in your last 2 years on council and why?
Do I get like 30 seconds to think before Morgan starts the time?
You've had 5 seconds, go.
Clock's ticking.
Let's see. Well, as I mentioned before, I think we've done a lot of planning, and I'm proud of the amount of community engagement we've had and the amount of people I've met. It's been incredible to meet all different walks of life and distill that down into something that people agree on for the most part. One of my proudest things would also be my friendship with Jim Miles, because during the debate in 2017, I was up here and so scared, and I had all these preconceived notions about him and what he stood for and who he was, and now we're just the best of friends. And so I think that's been the biggest slice of humble pie for me, and really more point of personal growth. City-wise, yes, community engagement. What else have we done? Oh my goodness, so much stuff. The GV Heat program, I think, is a really great accomplishment. Thank you, Lauren. We're currently retrofitting 30 homes for applicants to make their homes more energy efficient. It's a great program. You can use it whether you're a renter or a homeowner. And we're proving our worth with that program and continuing it into 2020. I'm really excited about our comprehensive plan that is a visioning process into 2030. Another thing is Gunnison Rising. It was not a project I was excited about when it was the big box commercial concept, and I thought it was really beautiful that Dick Bratton was able to wrap his head around what the community wanted and revision that whole project within 9 months, and I think it's going to be really incredible. Thank you, Dick.
Great, thanks, Mallory. Steve, it's your turn. You mentioned this idea of a bypass around the city. What are your ideas for where it might be located and how it would be paid for?
Well, there's certainly a place east of town up one of those gulches that go north off of Highway 50, somewhere to the west of the cemetery, and then up and over the top. Yeah, we don't really have a lot of room left anymore. That's why we need to start thinking about it now, so we can line up property to do this at some point. But I mean, we have a main street and Highway 50 through town that there's nowhere else to put traffic. It's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse unless we start to think about how we're going to get at least trucks around the city. And yeah, I know Jim Seitz during the Bratton annexation, he suggested that to the city and it never went anywhere, but I think we're going to have to look at a bypass at some place to get people off of Highway 50 and maybe south of town and back onto the highway, and then also a way to get them up Highway 135. I think it's just going to be critical at some point. And you know, I don't even like to go downtown in the middle of the summer because it's such a god-awful mess. I mean, it's horrible. You don't want to sit up and eat a pizza on the High Alpine Brewery deck because it's noisy, stinky, and I'm sure it's not good for your health breathing all those diesel and car fumes. So, you know, at some point, we're gonna have to grow up and think about how we're gonna deal with it. Thank you.
Bo, you mentioned an interest in preserving the character of the community. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What sort of initiatives you might work toward to ensure that that happens?
Well, you know, my family, I grew up in Alamosa. We came up here in the late 60s and would stay in the Cattleman Hotel. And I just remember Gunnison always being a very special place to come to, and just had this real different feel than even Alamosa had. Loved it. And when I found out they had a college here, that's where I was going to go. Anyway, you know, the downtown has got a particular Western charm to it that can't be changed. I mean, there are some improvements that can happen, some upgrades to make foot travel or just travel by our visitors or by the community much more pleasant. But we have to be careful not to take away of some of the charm that we have in the city. However, in retrospect, I think that, you know, as we mentioned about Gunnison Rising, I mean that charm. Well, I've heard about the possible moving of the stockyards or the fairgrounds, and you know that could actually add to the feel of the western sense of the town. Having that be the thing you see as you come into town, possibly on the east side of town. I guess just to kind of maintain the beauty of the buildings that we have, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Diego, you've indicated that having immigrated to the United States at a young age and then having lived in various places across the country gives you a unique perspective in dealing with problems. What is an example of how this has helped you solve problems in the past?
We're all humans, and by nature have preconceived notions of who we assimilate with and who we tend to get along with. Going to a high school where whites were the minority, blacks were the majority, and the Latinos were kind of in the middle there, gave me a real great sense of assimilation. Moving to a new place often, my parents moved a lot, created a bit of an opportunity for me to become somebody new, but also in large, really become acquainted with the new ways of being in that new place that I went to. In Denver, it was learning to ski and understanding more about the Rocky Mountains. Here in Gunnison, I just had a conversation with my babysitter, and she's a great hunter. I've never hunted in my life, right? So the ability for me to assimilate to the culture, understand the challenges, understand the values of that community and those people is something that I pride myself in being able to do and really hold dear to my heart, because I still very much hold my Venezuelan roots and wish I could see my family that's down there, but it's just difficult right now. Nonetheless, at work, it's a real great opportunity for me to work across global boundaries, because it's not necessarily easy to work with Dubai during their time zones and understand how they want to approach this project that we're trying to finish. That ability for me to assimilate has really helped me, and I think goes a long way.
I think it's Steve's turn to go first, and we're going to go toward Diego for this next set of questions that we're going to ask. Steve, you've worked as a builder a long time. What is your assessment of city building codes, particularly related to energy efficiency? Would you work to change anything, and if so, why?
Well, the city and the county finally adopted good air sealing codes, because air leakage into homes is really a bad thing. It gives you bad air quality, And of course, when the air blows in through your house, it blows all the heat out the other side. So the city and the county have finally gotten there. They've gotten into mechanical ventilation for a well-sealed house so that air quality stays good in the house. But I think what needs to happen next is I think the city needs to start looking at a code that says you cannot hook your house up to a natural gas pipeline. You have to design your house to use the sun. If we're going to deal with carbon, then we're going to have to start having ways out there that people can or policies that allow people that even have a natural gas house to find ways to change it over to electric. And this is why that's so important, that all our homes be electric, because we can generate our own energy in this valley to heat our homes and to heat existing homes if we just start doing a transformation. Rocky Mountain Institute up in Aspen, that's what they say everybody should do. If their gas boiler is getting close to the end of its life, start planning to put in an electric boiler system, so you can generate your own energy off your own roof, or we can use energy from a city solar system to heat your house. Because we really need to start dealing with carbon, and we haven't up to this point, and our kids are starting to get very upset with us. Just look at Greta Thunberg, who came to the UN and castigated the adults because they've known this is the problem for 40 years and we've done nothing about it. It's time to start doing something about our carbon problem. So, yeah, I would like to see every home hooked up to the sun rather than hooked up to a natural gas pipeline.
Mallory, communication both internally and externally on the part of city government was a big topic leading up to the last election. How would you assess how things have changed, if at all, during your first term? In the realm of communication, is there anything that still needs to be done?
Well, we've done quite a lot. It was one of our strategic goals, and we've established a social media plan through the city clerk's office. They have like a little social media club where they get together and every department kind of touches base on what they're doing. We host City Fest in July, where all residents are welcome to come for a free dinner, but in order to get the dinner, you have to go buy all the presentations and talk to Russ. We try to host all of our planning events in various places and engage as many citizens as we can. We realize not everybody can come to a debate at 7 p.m. on a school night, and so we try to find ways to reach out to different residents. And we are sending out a monthly newsletter. We reestablished coffee with council meetings. I think we must be doing okay because we haven't had very good attendance. We did a survey through Parks and Rec, asking about what residents want to see from our rec department. We've got me downtown every day. People just pop in. It's great. It really is. And we've had city staff. Anton, our new community development director, is going to senior lunches, and Russ has really been great at communicating with people who have questions and problems. Also, Erica Boucher, our new city clerk, has kind of taken a dual role and is doing a lot more of the communication management. So I think what was contentious was, were we going to hire a full-time communications person, which we have not, but I think every department has really stepped up to engage.
Great. Diego, you mentioned your experience on Gunnison County Planning Commission. Can you give us an example of one thing in particular that it has taught you and how you might apply that were you to be elected to City Council?
Absolutely. Being appointed to the Gunnison County Planning Commission has been a real treat. It's been a real learning experience. 2 years in, and I've learned a ton of things. I continue to, and I'll be there tomorrow at 9 a.m. if you want to see me in action again. One of the main lessons that I've taken away thus far is to really go with my gut instinct. We had an application that was eventually overturned. The Planning Commission's decision was overturned by the Board of County Commissioners. You may all be familiar with this application and project. During the process, I wasn't comfortable in following that gut instinct right off the get-go, and in hindsight, wish I had, because it was leading me in the right direction, which then really reassured me that I do have a good understanding of where things need to go. Not talking infrastructure-wise, in this case, yes, but policy-wise, and for the community and for the future development of the community in all aspects. So I think the key lesson from that was, again, to really just follow my instinct, do my due diligence with all of the information that is provided, and ensure that I'm looking at this case or scenario from all angles within myself, chatting with all involved stakeholders, building a consensus with them, and then again looking to myself and making that decision as I first thought I should.
Bo, we know that you're a Western alum. What is your assessment of the current relationship between the city and the university? And is there anything you would work to change if elected?
Well, I want to believe it's a real good relationship. I think they both rely on each other a lot. I would love to see, the Ohio Street plan is a great idea to hopefully allow students to feel like they're really part of the community by having a corridor that they follow into the city. I think one without the other would make a difficult scenario for the survival of either one. I think Gunnison without the college would be a real different place, obviously, and vice versa. Being a Western alum and my kids both going there, I've got a real deep passion for the place. I think the town has done a really good job of welcoming those students. They have the flags up all when they come back to school, and I think that's a great thing. I don't see that happening in other places. I'd like to see that continue and expand, and again, like I say, with the Ohio Street project, and maybe with my kids being in there recently, they just graduated last couple of years. They always said about they would like to have a few more options of places to go to eat. They always say, oh, gosh, a place like a Qdoba would kill it in this town or something like that. And I've heard that from a lot of people, and that kind of goes against my other thing about keeping the charm of the western town here. But I think a lot of kids really would like to see those kinds of things come to town. So I think we need to maybe listen more to their needs and continue to embrace the support that we already give them. So, yeah.
Great. We're going to have a little fun now. We're going to move into what we call the lightning round, where only one-word answers are acceptable. Here.
Is maybe okay?
One word. I've lost track. Who's going first here?
I think I went first.
Steve went, so we're back to
Steve, Mallory, me,
Me.
Bo. So I think we're back to you going
Good.
first. We're gonna go this turn. Do you support the library district's ballot measure 6A? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, I have a sign in my front yard. One word.
Yes, I printed the signs.
Yes. Yes.
Diego, coming this direction. Would you support a dedicated revenue stream for affordable housing?
Yes.
Mallory? One.
Maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can't
Okay.
answer.
Mallory coming this direction. Should the city enact regulations on short-term rentals?
Yes.
Maybe.
That's your answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Steve going toward Diego. Should the city do more to combat climate change? You don't even have to answer.
Yes.
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 Okay. Mallory going again. Okay, I'm sorry. Would you support moving the fairgrounds to the Gunnison Rising annexation?
Yes. Wait, absolutely.
That's one word. Which way are we going? I lost tracks there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
I'm positive on that.
Okay. Now we're going Diego this way. Should there be a cap on the number of retail cannabis shops in the city?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
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 Okay. More than $200,000 is in the marijuana mitigation fund currently, and specific uses have appeared difficult to identify. Should the current city-specific tax on those sales be reduced or eliminated?
Not sure.
I think they should be reduced.
Probably not.
No.
Okay. Steve going toward Diego. Do new crosswalks sufficiently address safety along Tamichi Avenue?
No.
No.
Do you mean just the 2 new ones?
Yes.
No.
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 Okay. Mallory coming toward me.
Lightning, come on, Will.
I'm getting old. It's the fine print. Snow removal, windrow or plow to the curb?
Windrow Gothic Ave.
Curb.
Okay.
Windrow.
Windrow.
Okay. We're going to start with Diego and work toward me this time. This is a question of favorites. Brewery or bistro?
Depends what night, huh?
We're choosing sides.
Mallory?
No, don't, No coaching.
Dive.
No, that's not an option.
Dive.
Brewery.
Yeah, brewery.
Okay. We're going to start with Bo and go this direction. Dive or Maria's?
Oh,
Dive.
No.
Dive.
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 Okay. Candidates get a closing statement now. You'll have 1 minute to possibly address something that's maybe been mentioned by another candidate, further elaborate on your policy positions, remind us all of what they are. It's up to you how you want to use that minute. I think we're going to start with Steve this time and work toward Diego. Steve, you go first.
How long do we have?
1 minute.
Oh, okay. Yeah, in closing, I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight. I appreciate you being here to listen to all 4 candidates. I think we have 5 great candidates. And I think all of us have an environmental backbone, and I think all of us will be good on the town council. I will work hard for the citizens of Gunnison, listen to their concerns, help find resolutions to complex problems, and labor even harder for our children and grandchildren to make sure that they have a future by fighting against and adapting to climate change. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all so much for spending your Thursday here. So exciting. Hopefully you sleep well. I know I will. And I'm also proud to say that my tenets hold true from my 2017 campaign. And so what I said back then holds true now, that I will practice transparency and clear communication in my interactions with staff and citizens. And we'll seek out all opinions as we make much needed improvements to our infrastructure, address housing issues, improve our economic vitality and quality of life, and explore the delicate balance of maintaining the spirit of Gunnison and our core values in the face of growth. I also have so much more to say and talk about. And I feel like it's really hard sitting up here just, bumbling it out of your brain. So if any of you want to grab a coffee, shoot me an email, grab a beer at the brewery or the bistro. Monday burger night is great at the bistro. Thank you so much for coming.
Yep, thank you all for being here. I hope I can count on your support to lead the next city council in the right direction. I would work to ensure that we collaborate across all backgrounds, agencies, local, state, federal, to bring to Gunnison what isn't already here and to keep what is here moving forward in a effective and sustainable way. I hope to build many more relationships with both the citizens of Gunnison as well as other entities that we work with. I want to ensure that we take care of our citizens, both the young, the elder, and those in between. As a working father of two, I think it's important to look at all demographics. I'm sort of in the middle, but we need to ensure that that full spectrum is cared for and looked out for, and most importantly, communicated to and then listened to. Thank you.
Well, spending my entire career in public education, I learned how to be a real good team player. We did lots of things in that regard, and I think a lot of that could transfer to the city council. I've got a real eagerness to work with others. I'm a good listener. I am a team player, I feel. I've taken on a lot of responsibilities in the past that I was a little bit out of my comfort zone in the education field. And I'm not afraid to do that. This is one thing I'm not really used to, speaking in front of people who are interested in what I have to say. In eighth grade classroom, it's not always the case. So anyway, I'm kind of surprised how nervous I've been tonight. But anyway, yes, I would love to have your support, and I would love to have the opportunity to serve this community that I really do like a lot. I love this community, actually, and it would be an honor to be able to be nominated or elected for city council.
I want to thank you all and Josh, for your willingness to throw your hats in the rings. I'm sure at times it's a thankless job, but somebody's got to do it, and ultimately you're serving us all. So thank you. Thanks everybody for attending. I think we know quite a bit more about the candidates and their views at this point. So I think it's been successful in that regard. Thanks again.
Chris said he's buying everyone beers.
Unfortunately, I don't have the script. David, you got out of town before I got
It's an honor being up here with all three of you.
Yes.
I am
Thank you very much, Paul. I really appreciate it. I look forward to hopefully serving you. It's going to be quite a challenge. I'm up for it. Thank you. Sure. I was in the Sustainable Environment Community Society, so I worked with Somerset and Ross Forest when he was Community Development Director of the county to carry out a social impact assessment of their impacts after the people that I work with, there's a lot of natural resource development, mining, oil and gas, and one of my personal key interests is the communities that are affected by those, from the building starts all the way through closure. And so to me it's important to closure, and I've chatted with local professional mechanics, and it's unfortunately one of the things that we have to look at, you know, and not to disagree with moving towards electric cars, but what do we do with those batteries? Those batteries have a lifespan. I try to look at what's going to happen once this is over. That's my focus. It's a zero game, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Great to meet
There you go. Thanks for being out there.
That's a little over my head.
Just say no.
file, my wireless. One word.
That's 3 words at least, right?
Did I pay you?
Yeah.